Hello, Yes But Why listeners. This is your host, Amy Jordan. Hope you guys are having a great week. Welcome to Yes But Why, episode 319, my interview with Patti Stiles. But first, let me tell you a little bit about how Yes But Why podcast is sponsored by Audible. Audible is the reigning app for audiobooks. It's what I use, and it's really very easy and straightforward. If you sign up today, the first really cool thing that you'll see is that there's access to hundreds of books and podcasts just already available with your membership. Then every month you get a credit, which you can use to get access to some brand new bestseller that everybody in your break room's talking about. So why not sign up today for your 30-day free trial using audibletrial.com/yesbutwhy. You'll get access to lots of good content ready to be listened to right away. From books to podcasts to music to audio dramas, there's something for everyone on Audible. Go now to audibletrial.com/yesbutwhy to sign up and get your account today. I'd really appreciate it, and you will enjoy it. Okay, so without further ado, this week on Yes But Why, I present my interview with world-renowned improviser Patti Stiles. We chatted about connecting with an audience, learning from your fellow player, and finding success within yourself. Patti shared with me the experience of writing her book, Improvise Freely, and she mentioned how much she wants to write another book. Very exciting. Please enjoy listening to this amazing opportunity I had to speak with Patti Stiles. I now present to you Yes But Why, episode 319. Patti Stiles and a life of telling stories and creating wonder. Enjoy. I'm Amy Jordan, and this is
Yes But Why.
Yes, but why?
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 This is the Yes But Why podcast.
Well, I grew up as an only child, so I have a lot of memories of like sitting with 5 or 6 board games and dumping all the pieces in the middle of the floor and creating a new game. Or running around and playing, I'll play the blue car and the yellow car and the red car and the green car. And each car would have its own strategy. And because as a child, imagination and creativity is like breathing.
Yeah.
It's so organic and it's so natural. And if you have something to stimulate the imagination and space and freedom to explore that imagination and creativity, it happens. My mom didn't come in the room and go, "Oh, that's not how you play that game," or, "Oh, you're making a mess." I was just playing. I mean, at some point I had to clean it up, but not always. Sometimes she just let me leave stuff out. I also had like a bunch of marbles, and my dad used to bring back, he would find these ball bearings, like these metal marbles. So I had all the beautiful glass marbles, and then I had these like kick-ass metal marbles. And we had a little railing along our staircase, like molding on the side of the wall. And I used to roll the marble down, and sometimes I'd fall off on a particular stair, and sometimes I'd go right to the bottom and then jump and then go across the radiator. And somehow, even at that age, I knew something I had a sense of status, because the ones that made it all the way would then end up being like the kings and queens. And the ones that made it less would be kind of further down the pecking order. And, I'm 7. Like, I don't really have an awareness of it except for fairy tales and movies. But I would do that. And then I'd play these games with, the different marbles and the different groups. And so I just have a lot of memories of taking something and doing something else with it. Like, it was Halloween. So I took my Barbies and my G.I. Joe dolls, because I thank goodness Mom understood that when I grew up, everything was very gendered. And I pushed back against that. I was much happier with a Tonka toy than I was with a Barbie. But it was Halloween, so I took the Barbies and my G.I. Joes and I put nail polish on them because they had to have a costume to go to the event.
Sure.
And then, of course, tried to take the nail polish off, and all their hair and eye and anything that was painted on came off.
Oh my God, that's so real.
Yeah. But I just have endless memories of taking the thing that was supposed to be used one way and finding a bunch of other ways to play with it, use it, explore it, or make it something other.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you think that was something that you came from your parents, or was it something that was in a, at your school, there was a teacher that suggested that kind of thing?
I think it's very natural for kids to do that. You give them a stick and a box and they're off for hours of joy.
Yeah, I guess you're right.
The interruption is the logic of the adults trying to say, this is how you open the box and this is how you go in and out of the box, instead of just letting them wear the box as a hat.
Yeah.
So I think it's more sometimes adults forgetting that exploring an item for its potential is creativity. If I take a drum and I use it as a hat, it doesn't mean that I'm not using the drum as a drum. It means I'm using the drum as something different. As a child, I still know I can make noise with it. I'm just doing something other right now because I want to explore the concept of it. For a short period of time, I worked in a daycare in the toddler room. And I was watching this little girl wandering around, and she was taking a block, and then she'd go to the other side of the room and she'd put the block under something. And then she'd come back and she'd take a block and she'd go to the other side of the room and she'd put it behind something. And she just did this pattern, and then she'd go off and do something else. But later in the day, she'd go back and look under, and she'd go back and look behind. But by that point, people had cleaned up because we're getting on with the next activity and we've got to clean up and move. And I was like, what is that about? So I did a little bit of research and realized that that's actually a very normal thing that kids do in learning their environment and starting to understand and test memory. But the world we live in now, where everything has to be clean and orderly and put away, was interrupting a natural focus and a natural process that she was doing. And I think the same thing happens with creativity. Adults forget that it's okay to look at a kid talking to a stick. They haven't lost the grip of reality. They're just playing a game. They're just off in pretendy land.
Yeah.
You don't need to go over and say sticks don't talk. Let the stick talk.
Yeah.
Yeah,
absolutely.
So I think it's more that there might have been encouragement with my daycare. I went to daycare, and Alice Groves was the who ran the daycare. She was extraordinary in her love and her support and her wonder and her embracing kids. And there was a lot of free play there. It wasn't, we were structured with, lunch and washing our hands and nap time, but playtime, there was a room with boxes of toys. There was the outside area. And I don't remember constantly being put in, this is how you play. This is what we're doing now. It was playtime. So there might be something in that from a very early age, just being given permission.
Yeah. The beauty of preschool teachers and daycare providers are the people who have that playfulness still in them. They're some unsung heroes in the creative world for sure, because like you mentioned, you working at one of those places, I thought to myself, I would never have a job there. That is not my crowd at all. And it's really just, I don't know, maybe because I am actually I've been 36 since I was 7, but like I definitely thought of myself as an adult as a kid. So I wonder how that is, and sort of like the freedom to be able to play like that is something that, if you get to hold on to that. We were always doing business things with my mom. My mom had to go to meetings, and we'd have to sit outside in a hallway at this building. And I remember like playing with my sister. Thank God I had a sister, in this random room that had no toys in it. And it was just like us and like, an old telephone. And we're like, okay, what do we do here? So it's totally like environment. I love the idea of your daycare provider with like the, just toys everywhere and the openness to that. What made you take a job like that? Was that like something that you thought maybe you would want to do, or was that like a, early out of college job?
Yeah, it was, it was actually early out of high school.
Right on.
Because when I left high school, I had already started working at the Loose Moose Theater Company in Calgary. So it was a transition job to be able to pay the rent and, sustain myself while I was learning the skills and, building up my my work ethic and technique. And because performances were usually at night and on weekends, the daycare worked because it was daytime. And some shifts you'd be done at 3 or 4. So it seemed to fit. And I went, yeah, I've got the skills to do that. I can run around and play on swings and play with Play-Doh. And there was a lot of it I really enjoyed. Because it gave me, in a way, an opportunity to reflect back on what it was like to see things through kids' eyes. Mm-hmm. Whenever one of the kids would be doing something that seemed out of the flow or rhythm of what was happening or what was expected, I would always go, wow, what's that about? Right? And that helped me remember that, what is that about? What is that perception? How are you seeing this moment? And that was cool. It really kept me kind of stimulated mentally as well, because every day was a puzzle. There was one kid who just kept chewing on tables. I said, why? What's that? And then I went, oh, the tables are cool. You're teething. Ah, right. So there was like this investigation, curiosity, Sherlock Holmes thing.
Yeah.
Also getting to run around and put on costumes and read stories and play with musical instruments and go down slides and be in the sand pit. I was happy. It's like, I'm building sandcastles and I'm being paid. Woohoo!
Yeah, especially if it's like, daycare during the day and theater at night. Very similar.
Yep. I was happy.
Now, you mentioned that you got involved in this theater right out of high school. Have you always known, like, as long as you can remember, that you wanted to be performing in the theater? Yeah.
Yeah. So, I remember, like on the way to dance class, or, I did baton and I did tap, but sometimes I'd be sitting on the bus and I'd be running little scenarios through my mind of, when you get discovered, or when you're on a particular show, or, when you get to, work with someone. And it's a little bit of the, idolizing celebrity and watching a bit too much TV. But every time I was doing something that was creative, that it was about inventing, releasing creativity, moving my body, expressing emotion, telling a story, connecting with an audience, be it my poor dear aunts and uncles, and how many times they had to watch me not just tell them about the musical we did at school, but I'd enact the whole thing for them. And they sat and watched it in their kitchens. Bless each and every one of them. That whole package, that's creativity and expression, from what's inside to the possibilities of what you're doing, to the sharing with an audience and the possibilities of that relationship and communication, and how that domino effect can affect those people, and therefore either just give people escapism or help to maybe create the world you want to live in. Everything about that just clicked with me. And although there was things I was fascinated by, like, psychology or archaeology, they still link. It's still stories and wonder and connection and humanity. But yeah, it just clicked with me. And I don't ever recall saying, I think I want to do ... It was always somewhere in there.
Yeah. And everybody was fine with that? I mean, clearly your aunts and uncles, a big supportive community of people. No,
they weren't fine with it. They loved watching, their child or their niece performing in front of them in the kitchen. That's cute. I mean, probably also incredibly annoying. And again, bless each and every one of them for the hours of patience they showed me. But there's something about when a child is in a kitchen and you're just supporting them in that moment, different to, being an actor. That's a scary world. That's a dangerous world. That's fraught with all sorts of problems. And my mom and dad were really concerned that I was picking a job that didn't have stability, credibility, that would put me in a very vulnerable position. My parents were quite a bit older when they had me. And, Dad remembers stories of, actors basically begging at the backstage door. And Dad worked building sets for the, I think, New York Metropolitan Opera. Am I right? So he actually saw the starving actor in the alley. Then, of course, there was and continues to be the power struggles and the misogyny, and being a woman going into the industry, there's a whole other level of vulnerability and fraught with danger. And they wanted their little girl to have a stable, secure life. They didn't want that. But what a lot of people don't understand is that the performing arts and the creative arts are an industry just like any other industry. And there are CEOs of oil companies that are off their rocker with power and money and, creating abusive cycles or have lived in abusive cycles. Every industry is fraught with the negative of what humanity can do when we've got money, power in the mix. You just don't hear that as much because that's looked at as legitimate. And the arts are looked at as, kids who don't want to grow up and, people who are always off in dreamland. I tell you what, I would challenge anybody who does, a weekly 9 to 5, 5 days a week. You try a 10 out of 12 tech week in a theater and you tell me we don't work our butts off. You just try memorizing a 2.5 hour script for a solo show that you're doing where at one point you're being brought in a coffin and then you're winched up and you have to fly. You just try that and then say it's easy and dreamy. It's not. Yeah. It's work. And it's work we choose to do joyously. But it's an industry. And like every industry, you have to train. You have to understand what it is that you are aiming for. You need to set your parameters of success. You have to have your ethics in alignment with who you are as a person so you can navigate when choices are put in front of you and understand why you want to be in that world. But that's the same thing as going into medicine or law or, any other field. Otherwise, you're doing a job that you're unhappy with. You're vulnerable to other people's point of view of how it should be. And you could be manipulated by that power, money, and So it's the same thing. It's an industry. And once we take the Hollywood shine off it, it's a job.
Yeah. It made me think of when you were talking about the celebrity worship that we have. It also made me think of when you brought up the hierarchy of the marbles earlier, and how there's this sort of like inherent need in us to understand things based on this hierarchy of what's better and what's worse. And maybe it's in us all the time, or maybe it's just so like permeated in our cultures that like there's just no way to not know it, by the time you're 5 or 6, like, because I think of the things that my kid who's 5 says to me, and I'm like, where did that thought occur to you? Like, we don't say that in this house. Like, even just the idea of being better or worse, or like, a certain kid in his class who he thinks he has to listen to. And he's like, well, he told me to do this. And I go, well, why'd you listen to him? And he's like, well, 'cause he's him. And I'm like, well, what does that mean? Like, but there's this vibe, there's this thing in the way that we understand the world, that we establish what is more important than something else, what is, I aspire to this. Now, I do think, interestingly enough, based on talking to people all over, that we have different ones, right? Each one of us individually have different ideas of what's good and bad, what's most important, right? And especially at this point in our lives, like, we've both interacted with and probably met famous people where you're like, oh, okay, they don't have it figured out. Okay, noted. But for you, what do you think in your journey was a point of success in your mind where you got to a point that felt like it was not the highest status maybe in your mind, but certainly I achieved this, and so now I feel, to use the phrase that we used earlier, legitimate in that moment? Can you think of a moment in your path that when you achieved something or when you did something, you were like, oh, this is it, I'm doing it, even if it was the first time you accomplished X or whatever? What do you think?
I think that's a great question. It actually stimulates a lot of responses. I think most performers go through the imposter syndrome, and not just once, multiple times in your life. Because we draw from ourselves. We are the product. My body, my voice, my perception, my ability, what I contribute in that moment. It's very vulnerable and it's very personal. And so when you're rewarded for that, it's nice, but it's also, ooh, wait a minute. Am I deserving of that? Which, of course, people could look at different ways, but, it depends on how you set your scale of what you're trying to achieve. Then we've got reviewers, which that's a whole other situation, because, people should have an opinion about art, but someone's opinion doesn't mean you're doing it right or wrong. It's their opinion. Working at the Loose Moose Theater was a really interesting starting point for me, because in high school, even in the school theater productions, there was starting to be this undercurrent of you're the lead and you're not the lead, and this person got the lead role. And the assumption around that was that meant they were better. They were the better actor because they got the lead role. That's not always the case. They might have a quality that's needed. It doesn't mean they're better. It means they're suited, not better suited, just suited. And that's okay, right? It might mean they're in grade 12 and they're about to leave instead of in grade 10 and just started. Like, the decisions behind it are not you are valued more and you are valued less. And the word better often is used or misinterpreted for a self-evaluation of value instead of simply a term on better suited or more qualified for, which doesn't mean you're less. It means you've got something to learn. So that was already starting to settle into my brain in school. And it wasn't intentional. My drama teachers were great. They were just using the terminology that, you know, professional theater uses. They were just following the model. But it was beginning. I was starting to be indoctrinated into, you know, that. And then I did a work experience program where I got placed at the Loose Moose Theater. And that world was nothing like that. It was, everybody has a voice. Everybody has an opinion. Everybody is equal. You can debate creative ideas. It's not about winning or being right. It's about learning from each other so we can give a better product to the audience. I came in, I was 18, and I was welcomed. I didn't have to prove myself to anybody. I just had to be a nice person who was curious and wanted to learn. Right? My first impro class was with the guys who started the company, the people who worked with Keith Johnstone in inventing theater sports. My very first class, I'm in the room with these, you know, iconic performers. There was no status games. I wasn't treated like the unknown or, you know, look, we'll show you how it's done. It was, come on, Patti, hop up. Let's try this. Ah, right. That was a block. This is why we don't do it. This is how it can be, you know, detrimental to the story. Let's do it again. They didn't play the status games. Not that we were devoid of it in the human sense. That's always there. But it wasn't there in the structure of the company. So after 6 months of being in this vibe with these people I loved and respected, who were kind of playing the way I did with, you know, here's a pack of crayons. Let's put them into different groupings and make a show. You know, you're doing this, you know, my way of breaking things apart and putting them together. That's what they were doing.
Yeah.
And they were getting energized by each other's ideas. And someone would say, what if we try doing that with this solution? Everybody go, let's try it. It was playtime. It was creative. It was permissive. It was supportive. It was a unified group of creative artists who were more focused on the creativity than their ego or their status. So about 6 months into it, I was running lights for a kid's show. And I brought my lunch. We had a morning show and we had an afternoon show. I think we had schools coming in. And I sat in the theater, and I was by the steps. This is at the Loose Moose Theater Simplex for any Calgarians or improvisers who have been to the Moose at that time. Mm-hmm. And I was sitting on the steps by the booth, my little lunch, in the energy of the theater. It was just me. Nobody else was there. And I just felt home. And that's when I felt I am now an actor. I'm a performing artist. I work in theater. There have been many times since then where that's been challenged or confronted, or I've, had different knocks. There's been a lot of times where maybe a good review or people have, through wanting to create status, have tried to generate a placement for me in, let's say, the improv community. And I appreciate the respect behind that. But that's not why the way my brain works. I don't need that status. I don't need that pedestal. I need the work. I need the communication. I need the honesty. I need the cast, that connection.
Yeah.
That's what fires me up. That's what's important to me.
Yeah. I love this moment sitting on the steps of the stage and just taking it all in. I love being alone in a theater space. It's so amazing. It's one of my favorite things. Back in the day when I was a stage manager, that was always my favorite part, was being the person to turn the lights on or being the first one in the room and being like, this is what we're doing. This is real. Like,
yes.
Yeah. It just
that
feels
felt like the validation.
Yeah. Yeah, it feels like great to just be part of something that feels historical in its way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's ancient and it's ritual and it's vibrant and it's present and it's energy and you're included in that. That's when I felt validated. That's when I felt,
you mentioned earlier
cool.
This idea of there are culturally sometimes, I would say probably our entire lifetime, no one's been very respectful of artists. It's always seen as this low status situation. And whenever I think about it, it's like a lot of ways that I look at the world. I'm like, well, they just don't get it. And I feel bad for them, that they, capital T, that they don't get something about the world that they understand. Even, oh my goodness, even during the height of the pandemic, when everyone was like, artists aren't even a real career, and then everything that they did in their day was consuming art, and it was all like, okay, cool, awesome. You need us, right? Clearly you need us, because you can't live your day without us. But yeah, sure, throw us under the bus. That's fine, please. And there's something, but even harkening back on the idea that there's this historical thing, like storytelling, in college, we went to my abroad program. I went to Greece and I stood in the space where Aristophanes put on the clouds. Are you kidding me right now? What? But it's so real. It's this space, even though it was essentially just rock stairs, and people were like, yeah, I guess. And I was like, no, man, I can feel it. I can feel it happening right here. There's something about seeing the world, about connecting with the world in this way, that anytime a person scoffs, I'm like, I'm so sorry for you that you can't see this. Because it's almost like finding out that you see colors other people don't,
Yeah. I had an interesting conversation on a plane sitting next to this gentleman. And, we're just chatting, and conversation starts going into, what do you do for a living? And I said, I'm an actor. And he said, oh, my daughter wants to go into acting. said, oh, great. And he said, yeah, you know, I'm wondering if you can give me advice, you know, because I was talking to her last week and I was saying, yes, you know, follow your dreams, but just have a backup career, have a backup diploma. And I went, I said, are you really open to my advice? And he went, yes, absolutely. And I said, you just told her she'll fail. If someone wants to go into medicine, parents don't say have a backup job. There's no guarantee that they're going to graduate. There's no guarantee they're going to be good at it. There's no guarantee they're going to get a job. Odds are they probably will, but there's no guarantee. And we don't say do a backup diploma. So what you've said is, that's nice, pat on the head, get a backup diploma, that's going to be your life. Have your playtime and prepare yourself for the real thing. You've completely discounted the dream. And you've given a secondary focus at the time when she's trying to train. So she won't be able to fully embrace what she's doing and apply herself completely to the dream if she's also have to do, you know, reports and exams in the other diploma. Would it be so wrong if she focused on her dream, went for it, you know, full and total commitment, got that degree, tried it for 2 or 3 years. After 3 years, if you're not getting any work, you're not landing any gigs, you're not getting any shows, you're going to rethink it. And then you'll adjust, and then you'll make another plan, and maybe you go back to school. Is there anything so horrible about that? And he went, no. I said, well, do you want to support her? Go to every show. Yeah, just be there. Let her take the chance. Let her take the risk. She'll know. She'll figure it out. Yeah. There's a lot of actors after 3 years after, they pivot, they go back to school, they do something else. That's fine. They gave it a go.
Not to mention that the skills that you learn in your average acting school aren't bad for other jobs. You know what I mean? Like, I know a lot Absolutely. Of my friends, I would say I went to a college, a small school. My graduating class of theater people, there were 6 of us. And
wow.
And I probably am the only one of us that's still full-time in the arts, right? That's just out of 6, right? And do these other people use the skills that they developed when they were doing plays? And yeah, absolutely they do, right? I mean, like, this one girl in my class, she works to organize this whole community, and she works at this church and like helps them do their presentations. Absolutely, because she worked in a theater. She knows how to do it. She's just using it in a different crowd, right? Absolutely, you know? I mean, you can use whatever it might be. One of the girls who was in the class with me, she was a great actress. She really understood how to get into the mind of the character, and now she's a psychologist, and she understands how to get into the mind of her patients and help them to, you know, sort of role Absolutely. Play out their situations and figure it out. It's helpful skills. These skills are good.
Absolutely. I was just at my niece's wedding, one of my niece's weddings, and I had the great honor of being able to do a reading at the wedding. And, you know, so I get up and microphone, do the reading. Very lovely. Later at the reception, one of the bridesmaids came up to me and said, wow, oh, that reading was so beautiful. And you spoke so well. When I get married, I want you to be the celebrant. I don't care about anything else, just your voice. I mean, you're just, that was just, and I'm thinking, well, yeah, there's, you know, I've got that training behind me and it comes to play in all that I do.
Yeah.
You know, my listening skills, are heightened because of what I do. Do I always use them? I could improve that, of course. But, in certain environments, yeah, boom, my assessment of body language and emotional reading and what's going on with status play in a room. When I turn that on, yep, okay, I see some stuff going on. If I'm moving through a crowd of people, I can put up or down the status to help navigate the space, because as actors, we know how to use our bodies to claim space and not claim space, to get attention and not get attention, to draw focus and not draw focus. There's a lot we study that's a part of our craft that's really helpful in communication and navigating the world.
I am often talking about how improv could save the world in its way, and how the skills therein are helpful for literally every job. Like, no matter what job you have, you would be better at it if you had, a couple of improv classes under your belt and you felt confident enough to do that. And a lot of people are like, I'm sure you've heard it. Oh, well, I'm not meant for the stage. It's like, well, cool. Do improv then, because we're all sort of like the odd random crowd that came together. Back in the day, we may have met smoking cigarettes, but now we don't smoke anymore. So we meet in improv theaters and we're like, hey, I'm weird. You weird? Yeah. Oh, cool. Let's hang out. And there's something beautiful about embracing it and letting people be who they are, because there's literally no other place in the world where you can be yourself. And I find that when people are allowed to be themselves, they have a tendency to really learn who they are. And then they can use their own skills as the superpowers they are, as opposed to thinking they're, oh, this is pretty good, but I'm not as good as this other person, or everybody in the whole group is good at this, No, you have your superpowers and you just need to connect with what those are.
Absolutely. I also think it's interesting, like when you look at the theater world, there's a very big divide between professional theater, amateur theater, community theater.
Oh, yeah.
Huge chasms between. And I tell you, I've seen some community theater and amateur theater that blew my socks off, and a lot of professional theater where I was snoring. Because, the label is supposed to represent something, and, it doesn't always meet that mark one way or the other. Improvisation also has professional actors who have come to improvisation because the creative opportunities in being that visceral, vulnerable, present, and connected with other artists and the audience in the moment where it's being revealed is so electric, and the possibilities of that are so immense that, we're moths to a light. There's also a lot of people, like, said that, people say, well, I'm not meant for the stage. You don't have to be meant for the stage to enjoy improvisation. We do have people who play improvisation for the joy of playing improvisation. We have people who are exploring the joy of performing it, and they maybe are starting to find that energy and they might go somewhere else. Great. And then we've got people who their life is about being on stage and what they can create. And although we can recognize that there's different objectives, agendas, I'm going to say commitment, and not heart commitment, but time commitment to the craft and the creating of shows. We still are all in the same community. We don't have the chasms between the different objectives, or how it can fulfill fill everybody's cup. We have an awareness of, right, okay, this company, these people, they're doing it as their livelihood. Therefore, we tend to term them as professional. And these people are doing it because it's a joyous thing that they get to do once a week and they love it and it lights them up. Great. And we're all improvisers. Great. Yeah. And we will play together. Great. Because the likelihood of getting, I don't know, your Judi Dench to show up at a community theater and just walk into, a rehearsal and just go, oh, just come in and rehearse with you, wouldn't work because, I don't know her, so I don't know personally she would do it, but that's just not the way theater is structured. You just can't walk into someone else's rehearsal and go, hey, you want to play?
Yeah.
Can I play that role for an hour? But in improvisation, you can pop into a town and rock up to an improv company and go, hi, I'm from this city. And they go, great, we've got a jam this week. And you go, thanks. Like, we're a little bit, the door to the kitchen's always open. Come on in and have a cup of coffee. We've got that in our community, which is fabulous.
There are definitely a lot of people that are trying to establish the hierarchy of theater in improv, and I find that that kind of stuff still happens, but it's more like business, meaning like this is how we get people to come see shows is by having that Saturday night show with all the famous people do improv, because back in the day they took an improv class and now they're on their sitcom and it's like, okay, cool, I get it, I get why you're trying to make cash, but those people like that's just the way it's fronting to the audience, which also then makes people like things like UCB in LA, where they're like really leaned into like getting the famous people to be the sales pitch for them. And it was like, that's great, but that they might get people through the door, but they're not necessarily the best, like the best improviser or the ones that like really are exploring something amazing or that even could get the audience to like break through their own understanding of something. Like, I don't know. I feel like there's a lot of people want to make sense of stuff. And I think the hierarchy stuff that we've been talking about is the way that they want to make sense of it. They want to believe that they're climbing a ladder and that they're moving towards some sort of goal that is moving up. There's an upward idea of this is what I should be doing. I should be doing the next level of this, the next level of this. And I feel like personally, it's more about exploration, I think, versus and different kinds of things and different kinds of people, and different ways that people perform things versus I'm moving up the rung. Now, don't get me wrong. No shade to anyone listening who's literally perhaps climbing the ladders of either New York theater or LA theater or any major city theater that really does require you to climb those ladders. I get it. You got to do it and you're doing great. Keep going. But if you're more open and you can give yourself the freedom, then you should, because I really just think that there's more to be gained. There's more stage time. There's more learning as an actor when you give yourself a larger breadth of exploration versus just going to the next, non-equity role they let you take as you're trying to get your equity card or whatever,
Absolutely. Everything that you said about the hierarchy and structure, in particular of the improvisation community. And, I think being able to have an opinion and a self-opinion about what is going on in a structure is not criticizing students' choice to take those classes.
Oh, no.
We're talking about the organizational structure and the reasons behind why there's that structure.
Mm.
So what you've described is very much the American approach.
Totally.
And this step ladder, level 1, level 2, level 3, 101, 102, 103A, all of that. When I started improvising, only existed in certain American companies. It was not the norm. It was the norm in the US. It was not the international norm. As some American teachers have gone to different places in the world and integrated with different companies, they bring what they know. They integrate what they know. And so now you've got companies in London that are doing that. Still, it is not the typical structure in France. It is not the typical structure in Portugal. It is not the typical structure in Italy. So there's an illusion of, when you do improvisation, you must go level 1, 2, 3. You must be on a team. You don't. You can be in a group or an ensemble or a company. Team is just what a group of improvisers have decided as a term for their school or their company. Great. It's not a term I use. Unless I'm playing theater sports, then I'm on a team. If I'm doing a show, I'm in a cast. If I'm in a rehearsal, I'm in an ensemble because I'm a theater. I'm a theater performer. I use theater terms. You don't have to learn the Herald to be an improviser. You can learn the Herald if you wish. And if you're working with a company that focuses on Herald, fantastic. There's a lot to learn there. But Herald is not the be all and end all of all improvisation. No, it is one show. It is one dish on this incredible buffet of creativity. No shade to the Herald, just kind of going, hey, move over. Let's not shade the other things that are equally valuable and equally important and equally wonderful.
Totally.
So it's a shame that something that is about creativity, openness, perception, imagination, impulse, inspiration has been blocked into a rigid structure, which is not the point of improvisation. This is why I wrote my book, Improvise Freely, because I am seeing such damage to people's creativity when they're in a scene and I'll side coach. Could you ask them? And they go, no. I go, what? I can't do that. Why can't you do that? Well, I can't ask a question. Why can't you ask a question? Because there's a rule. Don't ask questions. Sorry. To me, no. No, there is no rule. No. This is pretend. This is inspire. This is make up. This is create. Now, can questions cause problems in scenes? If the improviser is using questions to avoid contributing or taking responsibility or inspiring your partner or moving the story forward, yes. However, if the improviser is avoiding all of those things, then the improviser needs some training. They need to build up their trust and confidence and need to know that their ideas are going to be accepted and supported. Saying don't ask questions does not solve the problem. That improviser is hitting a personal improv block. That needs to be nurtured and worked on. Questions can be amazing in motivating scenes. And if we remove questions from scenes, you can't do a first date. You can't have strangers. You can't do a job interview. You can't do a courtroom scene. You can't do an interrogation. You can't. So why are we putting walls around our creativity? That doesn't make sense. Viola Spolin, Del Close, and Keith Johnstone all spoke against the rigid structure of traditional education and how it interrupted our creativity. And yet, we've got all these improv groups that are using reinforcing rigid creative structures to enforce what? Now, it can help people with clarity. I do this, I don't do that. But creativity is not do and don't do. Creativity, as you said earlier, is explore. And you have to make mistakes. That's part of the process. So if we say right, wrong, do, don't, we've removed the core of creativity and the core of improvisation, which is making the mistakes and learning how to make mistakes good-naturedly so we can make mistakes, so we can learn and evolve. I went on a big rant there. I hope it was useful. But it's something I'm very passionate about because I see performers stuck on stage because they want to ask a question and they can't. I see people come off stage and they're yelled at by someone else because they didn't name the character. Or you named me and it's not your right to name me and endow me with a character. What? A character name is an offer. What's the first thing we learned in improvisation? Make and accept offers. If you endow me with something that's an attack, then I go, whoa, hang on, what happened in your impro learning? Because you should never be walking on stage to attack another improviser. So again, it's not the name, it's what happened in your impro journey that you thought that was acceptable. And I can say, oh, sorry, I'm not that person. Yes, it's a block, but if you're attacking me, I have the right to block. Right? And we can have a scene where I can go, take another guess. What's my name? What's my name? What's my name? We have to look at things creatively, openly, with inspiration and joy and wonder. Not structures. No.
I used to teach a class and the students would get so upset when they laughed in the scenes. And I was like, guys, I don't know if you are aware of this, but people laugh. So if you laugh, maybe your character can laugh. It's fine. Like whatever's happening is ridiculous. You're allowed to acknowledge that as the character. Like laughing is okay because maybe your character laughed. Like why not? Laugh. Be in it.
If it's an organic, inspired, impulsive moment, isn't that what we're trying to get to in improvisation? And then if it's there and present in the scene, use it. Maybe you laugh so hard, you cough up a lung and then you have to go to the hospital. Like we can evolve any idea if we allow ourselves to. If you laugh and the other person is offended at your laughing, then great. We've got, dramatic tension. If you laugh and you can't stop laughing, now we've got a problem to solve. If you laugh to the point that you pass out and die, now we've got someone in a moral dilemma that they told a joke that killed you. What are they going to do with that? So yeah, laugh. But if you're laughing to hide, if you're laughing because you're uncomfortable and it's a defense, the audience will see that. But then that's our job as teachers and directors and your castmates to help you so that you don't feel that insecurity and vulnerability to the point where you need to defend yourself behind the laugh. And we do that in the workshop room and training. And if it comes out on stage and I see, you're uncomfortable right now, then I start laughing with you so we make the laughing a thing, because I'm not going to leave you out there on your own in that moment. I'm going to jump into that puddle with you and let's splash. Let's have it.
Yeah.
Because that's what we do. We look after each other. We inspire each other. We make each other look good.
Yeah.
We don't need rules to do that. We need vulnerability, acceptance, support, awareness, training. We need to focus our brain that when we step on that stage, boom, you're in my radar and this is my world. And I come to play. I don't come to impress. I come to play. I come to create. I come to discover. But that's the joy of it. that's the wonder. That's why we want to be actors.
Yeah.
So let's not make it so hard for ourselves.
I know. Yeah, they do take it so seriously. For sure. I wanted to ask you, what are you working on now that's your creative excitement? Like we've talked about these moments that we are, in the improv scenes and about the students that we've worked with and fellow players and like supporting them. But like, what's exciting you right now? Like, what is creatively filling up your cup in your own life in this moment?
Writing the book was a big, wow, did I learn a lot about myself. And boy, went through all the stages that you go through when you're first improvising. The blocking, the doubt, the I'm not creative, the, oh, nobody will listen to me. This is boring, all of that. And look, maybe for some people it is boring. That's okay. People are allowed to have their opinion. But that was a huge creative endeavor. And it's just been translated into Italian. So that was also, thank goodness for my wonderful editor, Jim Fishwick, who's also a beautiful improviser and creative artist, who guided that process with another two wonderful improvisers, Ole Rosini and Antonio Contarzi. Because I was, my head was spinning as what? But that was really interesting to listen to the questions from a different cultural perspective and a language perspective. You're communicating this, but that doesn't translate. It's like, yeah, right. Okay, get out of my English is the only language privilege box of, just being insensitive and unknowing, and go, right, okay, how do I word that? How do I phrase that so it can be heard and communicated? Just about to start on having it translated into French, which is very exciting. Also starting the journey of prepping for a second book, which is interesting. So creatively, I can feel a fire starting in my belly. There's things being posted online, and I'm like wanting to write my blog again, and I'm wanting to debate and discuss. So I'm feeling the fire is stoked again after the COVID years. Also, I'll be touring again, so I'm going to teach in Denmark at the National Theatre School. I'll be teaching at the ITI conference in Trondheim, Norway. I'll be working with a group in Finland, and then I'll be teaching and performing at a brand new festival in Malta, Improvisia. I think I said that right. I don't know. So being able to be back in the room with people is getting me very excited. And I'm toying with something in my brain, which is, as a result of the book and some communication I'm getting from people, and people kind of reflecting on what they were taught, how they were taught, which is really what the book is about. Like, at the end of the book, you want to have rules, fine. Your deal, your group, your show, whatever. All I'm asking is, let's have a conversation. Let's just not accept that someone hasn't, proclaimed that this is it, because that's not creativity. But it's been interesting to hear points of view on things, and I'm realizing that, as with anything, things go through cycles. And the improv world is in an interesting cycle right now with, I don't know if I can articulate this because I'm still pondering it, but I'll try. A little bit of, so someone will have an idea, or they'll teach a class, and you'll see it. It'll appear at a festival or online. You go, well, that's an interesting subject. And then suddenly there'll be 10 other classes on that same subject. And I go, okay, so was that inspiring the thought and the exploration of the content? Or was it popular? And it's going back to what you were saying about we bring in the celebrities to do the show and we're more worried about name than we are about what's happening necessarily on stage. And then I'm reading the descriptions of the workshops and going, okay, people are, they're doing their thing. But I'm realizing that there's less and less about or focusing on or connecting to kind of the core principles that were the foundations of the work. And it's natural that we're kind of, evolving, but I'm wondering if we're losing track of something quite valuable at the beginning. And as we grow as humans and we learn to communicate more openly, not just with words, but our heart in creating safer spaces and more welcoming spaces, being aware, really shining lights on our own ignorance and prejudice and breaking open the possibilities of stories on stage. I kind of feel like that foundation work is more important now than ever. Get back to how do we connect? How do we support? How do we listen? Not just, oh, I need to do this. No. No, as Keith Johnstone would say, the greatest skill of an improviser is your ability to inspire your partner's imagination. The focus is outward, not inward. It's not about your character, your character's need, your intention. It's what arrives as a result of you inspiring your partner. That immediately means I'm paying attention to my partner's safety, comfort, response. We used to do a lot of exercises at Loose Moose about what inspires our partner. Because there's this an assumption through a way of teaching, say yes or yes and, that you'll accept anything I say because it's the offer. We need to spend a lot of time on what inspires you. How do I learn about you? I'm going to play with you. What fires you up? What worlds do you want to go into? What stresses you out? And how can I help alleviate that? Because if we're going to really, truly step into that vulnerable space together, I need to spend time going, hey, improv friend. Hey, colleague, castmate, ensemble partner. Let me learn about you. And in the application of rules and, come in and do this, and you always have to do this and hit this mark and nail this beat and do this. It's so driven of self. There's so much burden on the improviser to deliver, do, achieve, get, nail. I just feel there's a part of the conversation we've let go, which is a really key component of the conversation. So creatively right now, that's firing me up, as well as I'm really looking forward to just getting out and watching some theater. I want to be inspired. I want to see, what are you doing? Sorry, did I shift too quickly there?
No, you're adorable. You were like, and I'm wrapping it up. Let me tell you where I'm going. You're just like, it was just adorable. And I was just delighted.
Yes, I'm hoping to, while I'm traveling, I've got a a couple of little weekends that I'm just going to go to a city and book into a lot of theater and just be alone in a theater, absorbing it. Yeah, I think that's important. I want to go to galleries. I want to, pick up music I've never heard. COVID, there was a lot of ways to do that, like watching National Theater at home, but I missed the physical sensation of feeling the emotion from the stage. So I'm looking forward to, just filling up my engines. Filling up my engines? Yeah. You fill up your engine. Yes. Okay.
Sure, whatever. Don't worry. Don't be afraid of your metaphors. They don't need to make sense. I like that you're touring in Europe as well. One of the things that I like you calling them the COVID years. I'm going to be calling them that now. That the COVID years led, I think it was in making a smaller world of improv. Like now I am just connected to people all over the world and even learning what we've been talking about, the idea of like, oh wait, you guys teach it this way? Oh wait, this is a thing that you start with? Oh, how fascinating. Just seeing it done in 1,000 different ways and discussing it and meeting people and seeing, like, they tell you how they teach it and you work with that and then you see them perform it and you're like, oh wow, okay. Like there's something really great about connecting all over the world and being, with all the different groups. And that the area that you mentioned, touring, I was like, oh great, you're gonna have a good crowd. Fingers crossed one person at least in one of these countries said they heard this interview. Like that would be like, so good. Yeah. I got some Denmark, Finland crowd. Yeah, for real.
Cool. Well, then they should come up and tell me and then I can pass it on to you.
Yeah, that'd be fun. Please do, guys.
Let's
seriously.
make that full circle.
Yeah. Yeah, you'll be on tour by the time this comes out. It'll be great.
Yes, actually, I will be, I think I'm at the Denmark Theater School when this comes out. Or I've just arrived there and I'm just about to start teaching. So, yeah.
Yeah, awesome. Oh, man, I feel like I could talk to you for another hour at least about just the, like, discussion of what improv is and then, like, how we could start it. And I'm like, oh, yeah, connection between people. And I'm like, okay, hold on. There has been such a beautiful conversation and it has been lovely and she's given so much time to you and I want you to know that I appreciate it. And this has been so amazing to explore these ideas with you and just to, think about how the improv world has changed both in your career and life and then also like in the world and what we are taking from it and learning from it and how we will be able to affect change and also make people happier and better improvisers as we move through it. So it's been a great chat with you. Thank you so much, Patti, for chatting with me and giving of your time to me.
Oh, it's been a great pleasure. Thank you. Thank you for the very inspiring questions. And yeah, I've just enjoyed this immensely. Like you, I'm like, oh yeah, well, we can just keep chatting. Really? Like people can leave if they're bored. They can come, go make dinner and then come back. And but of course, things have to be put into a structure, and I get that. So I just really appreciate the invitation and your time and all the time you take in creating this incredible, valuable resource. Now at episode 318 or 319?
Somewhere around there. I should have found out before we... before I started, but I didn't look it up right now at this moment. Yeah, just in that general area. Oh, thank you.
That's an amazing achievement. And on behalf of everybody who listens and everybody you've spoken to, thank you for your time.
Oh, that's so kind of you. Oh, Daddy. Thank you. That's so great. Thank you for listening to Yes But Why podcast. Check out all of our episodes on yesbutwhypodcast.com or check out all the content on our network, HC Universal, at hcuniversalnetwork.com.